Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and well, there's more news regarding the economy as well. Look at this debt clock. I mean, it's just getting crazier by the day. As we've reported recently, Deutsche Bank is cutting a bunch of jobs. They're talking about 1,000, then 10,000 last year, and now this year they're saying they're cutting 18,000 jobs as the banking system essentially goes into full bankruptcy. You look at almost any bank's balance sheet, cash to deposit ratio. It's insane, guys. It's absolutely insane. And all at the same time with the everything bubble, we see Australia is facing a crisis, and they're talking about lowering interest rates more. But of course, the RBA governor says employment at historic high and economy strong. Yeah, well, that's why you dropped interest rates from 1.5, well, down to 1.5, down to 1%, and are looking at negative interest rates. It is not looking good for places like Australia, as this article says. Weak economy on brink of lost decade. And they kind of equate it to Japan, which is, by the way, in negative interest rates territory now. And then, of course, in Britain, we are seeing a similar deal go down here, as this Reuters article says. No deal Brexit could bring near zero rates. Bank of England's Vlich, or however you pronounce that name, and they're talking about 0% interest. It's no doubt they're going negative, and they're in a crisis, and they are at a point where interest rates are so low that they have no choice but to drop them further, and that's not going to work out very well for them, as this article says from the Telegraph. Pound set for a record 10 consecutive weeks of decline versus a euro. But, of course, it's all just a race to the bottom. And carrying on, this is very much affecting the United States. The U.S. is talking about lowering interest rates, as this MarketWatch article says. Banking expert from 2008 crisis says low interest rates make banks vulnerable and Americans poorer. And ignoring the problem never makes sense. Petru says, well, but centralizing and controlling and manipulating causes the problem in the first place. So what do? Well, it needs to collapse. You don't prop up a dead horse. The more you prop it up, the worse it's going to be when it comes down. So the longer they try to artificially manipulate this fake debt-based system, the worse it's going to be. As this Fox Business article says, the Fed is poised to cut interest rates, but how much will they drop? And this is from July 12th as well. And it says, during a two-day appearance on Capitol Hill this week, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell signaled that in the face of growing uncertainties, policymakers at the U.S. Central Bank are prepared to lower interest rates at the upcoming July meeting. Although Wall Street was already pricing in a 100% chance of easier monetary policy, the news still sent stocks soaring, with the Nasdaq Composite notching a record high. Based in debt, guys, all based in debt. It's nothing. And I quote, it appears that uncertainties around trade tensions and concerns about the strength of the global economy continue to weigh on the U.S. economic outlook. Inflation pressures remain muted, Powell said in prepared remarks before the House Financial Services Committee. But I also want to mention that currently countries around the world are swapping out of the U.S. dollar en masse. It's becoming a major issue. A lot of countries have turned their back on the U.S. dollar, the world reserve currency, and all that props up that system is faith. And, well, people aren't that confident in the U.S. dollar anymore. As it says here, U.S. Treasury warns it will run out of cash in early September. And moreover, I want to go to this Daily Mail article here, first of all, which says U.S. government could run out of cash and default on its debt in just 8 weeks, says Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. And as the article goes into, if it doesn't glitch out too much for me here, as it says, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin telling congressional leaders Friday that Congress should raise the debt ceiling before leaving for its August recess. Just keep raising it, raise it more. Of course, that'll put off the inevitable, Steven. Carrying on, it says, the Treasury has been taking extraordinary steps since March to shuffle its cash around to continue paying its bills after hitting the $22 trillion debt limit set by Congress. That's theater at this point, as our friend G. Edward Griffin, who, by the way, is speaking at our upcoming Anarcho Vegas conference in Las Vegas on July 21st, has recently been talking about. It's all theater, like 22 trillion, 25 trillion, 30 trillion. It's all nonsense. It's nothing. They just keep propping it up and saying everything's going to be fine, but the longer they prop it up, the worse it's going to be when it comes down. Carrying on, as it says, Officials have issued dire warnings that without an increase in the borrowing limit, the U.S. could default on its debt for the first time. They have been urging the legislature to act before the summer break later this month. Based on updated projections, there is a scenario in which we run out of cash early September before Congress reconvenes, Mnuchin warned in a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And as it continues, it says he also wrote to Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. This website is super glitchy. Let me just try and scroll down here if they make it at all possible. As it continues, it says Pelosi late Thursday said she's working to finalize a deal that would temporarily raise the debt ceiling before the House Representatives shut down July 26, according to news report. Can I just shut down permanently? The House is not scheduled to reopen until September 9th. Nice paid vacation, guys, on taxpayer dime, welfare, you know what? The Bipartisan Policy Center, a centrist research organization, projected this week that lower than expected federal revenues this year could leave the government without the cash it needs in early September. Weaker than expected corporate income tax collections in particular seem to be related to the 2017 tax cuts, the BPC said in its report Monday. Not enough extortion, guys. Come on. You got to let yourself be. Oh, wait. More and more people are just avoiding or just rejecting the notion of taxation because it's theft. Carrying on, the United States lost its coveted AAA debt rating in 2011 following battles among lawmakers in Washington over whether to lift caps on U.S. sovereign borrowing, raising the likelihood of a U.S. default. Obviously, the recession never ended, guys. It's just been pushed off and off and off on a sea of debt, sewage, and it's been in a near complete crash since 2008. But it's just been nice veneer in the front. It's kind of like a Las Vegas casino. Looks real nice on the outside, and then you go inside, and they all look the same, and it's just depressing and sad. But anyway, as it carries on, it says, because the federal government traditionally runs a budget deficit, it has no choice but to borrow to finance government operations, including salaries, retirement benefits, social spending, and other expenses already approved by Congress. They use the excuse of helping poor people. It's such a small part of the budget overall. Most of the money goes to paying off the interest on the debt after you fraudulently print currency out of thin air. And also, another major issue that we're seeing there is that inflation continues to skyrocket. They use that money to pay off, like I said, the interest on the debt, but also blow up people overseas in perpetual wars that help prop up the monetary system and vice versa. But carrying on, it says, the Treasury previously said it could hold out until late summer, but the latest letter adds more urgency to the debate. It has suspended issuing new debt and halted investment by government pension funds. And pensions are looking at massive shortfalls as well. If you actually look at the shortfall in pensions worldwide, it's expected to hit $400 trillion by the year 2050. So what does that tell you? Well, it's going to happen sooner than that. It's going to come down sooner than that. But when people born in 2007 on average are expected to live to age 103, what does that mean? Well, it's not sustainable. It's not possible. It's simply impossible. It's ridiculous to even consider, and that's going to end up with torches in the streets. The pension shortfalls are huge. Pelosi said Thursday that she wants to complete a deal with Trump this month that would raise the government's borrowing limit and set spending levels for the coming budget year. More manipulation. Pelosi's office said the California Democrats spoke twice with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin on Thursday. She told reporters she is convinced that the double-barreled negotiation to prevent a first-ever default on U.S. obligations and prevent automatic spending cuts needs to be completed before Congress leaves Washington for its August recess. Mnuchin and Pelosi are taking the lead in the talks, which are backed by a bipartisan quartet of top congressional leaders and the White House. Pelosi has made clear her distaste for other administration officials, including acting chief of staff Mick Mulvaney, former Republican Tea Party congressman, saying they are unproductive negotiators. Pelosi and Capitol Hill GOP leaders want to pair the unpopular the unpopular debt measure with a new spending cap for the approximately $1.3 trillion in agency budgets appropriated by Congress each year. Pelosi didn't say she was realistic about the chances of a deal, but it is clear that the week's round of talks with Mnuchin are serious. And I quote, "When we have an announcement, we will have an announcement," Pelosi said. Wow, well said. But of course, it's all like, well, we need to negotiate. It's all about negotiating, working together, doing this. Wait a second. What about the individuals on the street that don't understand money, that are being essentially enslaved by this monetary system, as Robert Kiyosaki has gone into as well with us here at WHAM? And it's just so crazy because it's like we are making these decisions and you sit back. It's okay. Be dependent. Let us fix these problems for you, when they're the ones creating the problems in the first place. And then they create more by putting it off for a short while. It's so crazy that we put up with this as individuals constantly. They are ripping money out of your wallet. They're increasing the price of living, which affects the wages, where everyone's saying raise wages, but the issue isn't the wages. It's the fact that inflation is propping up the price of living so dramatically. There's vast debt, and people are enforced through enforced usury laws to pay off the interest on the debt. It's crazy. It's crazy. As this Wall Street Journal article says, as recession fears rise, skittish investors sell riskiest junk bonds. As we went into recently, there's some big problems with the bond market as, well, it's basically a bloodbath. Barron's, as this article says, negative yielding government bonds are old hat. Now investors are paying to hold corporate debt. And by the way, when you see the yield curve invert, it's basically always pointed to a recession. Now, I believe we've always been in a depression since 2008, and it's just been papered over with fake printing of currency out of thin air and these legal tender laws. But don't worry, Trump is there to save us. Trump says U.S. should join great currency manipulation game by devaluing the dollar. And as he said on Twitter, China and Europe playing big currency manipulation game and pumping money into their system in order to compete with USA. We should match or continue being the dummies who sit back and politely watch as other countries continue to play their games as they have for many years. So obviously the United States should play games while hurting the most impoverished because of inflation, which people don't seem to understand, because every argument I get on my videos regarding Trump and this stuff is shut up, and Trump is right, and China is stupid, and the US dollar is great. And it's like, great, yeah, that's what Trump said, but what is your opinion? Do you have an opinion? No, you're just regurgitating what you're told, which is exactly what Obama supporters did, exactly what Bush supporters did, and it keeps people complacent, forever distracted and complacent as they are being stepped on by a jackboot over and over and over again, trampled, and then the government comes in and says, we're here to save the day. Everyone be calm. It's wrong on so many levels. And then, of course, Trump is bashing Bitcoin, and rightly, Facebook's the Libra coin is stupid, but it doesn't know what crypto is, doesn't know what Bitcoin is, and doesn't know how diverse that idea is, or that definition is, depending on the individual cryptocurrency at hand, probably decentralized, or and with lots of fundamental value, or unlike the stock market, or, for example, completely centralized digital blockchain systems run through the government, etc. There's two different things, but of course, he says the U.S. dollar is great. It's the greatest in the world. It's huge. Donald Trump was real bullish on the U.S. dollar on Twitter, saying that the U.S. dollar is going to the moon. And, of course, the stock market hit all-time highs, which is, well, it's not really all-time highs when you counter in inflation, which, according to Shadow Stats, is around 11% or more. But with that said, and that's based on the 80 standards, but with that said, the U.S. dollar has like 99% devalued, and the stock market is propped up on debt. Again, it's based on nothing. As Stephen Kendall, our recent guest here at WHAM, said, you should check out our recent interview with him, by the way. As he said, it's the hashtag ghost crash. We've been in a crash for a long time. When people say you've been saying this forever, we've been right forever. It's basic economics. It's inevitable. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. Always have, always will. Going back to 1024 AD in China, and this time isn't any different. But we are already in a crash. It's just papered over, like I said. Now, crypto markets responded to Trump by going, I don't really care what you say. We're good. I think we're going to be good. Anyway. And gold prices have been really trying to move upwards lately at a historic pace. And of course, the gold-silver ratio is pretty astonishing as well. As you could see here, we got gold price is up $11.04 today as I report this to 1,415. 0.7% up or 0.8% up, which is pretty good for gold these days, especially after an artificial bear market for so long where banks, including Deutsche Bank, by the way, and others, Wells Fargo, you name it, have held that price down. And when the banks go down, by the way, it's like holding a beach ball underwater and it gains pressure and it bounces up. $15.22 for silver. And anyway, I'm going to go back to my pretty face here. Anyway, but again, this is, we're getting to the point of no return. I mean, this is a recession or a depression, however you want to look at it. Labels don't really mean that much. It's about what's happening to the impoverished most around the world, wherever you go, homelessness rising and all that. It's about the fact that this is getting to the brink where it's a massive domino effect, global everything bubble. Bubbles in housing markets around the world with a lot of help from the central banks and manipulation as well. Bubbles in pensions, student loans, the derivatives bubble, which is multi-quadrillion dollar level. I mean, come on, guys, it's ridiculous. And Deutsche Bank's derivative exposure is $45 trillion, by the way, and a German GDP of $3.5 trillion. Good luck with that. I'll be back in Germany next month, by the way. And Switzerland, Italy, all these places. I want to report on this stuff on the ground. But again, this is, we hear, well, the jobs numbers are great. We've never seen better jobs numbers. Jobs numbers are amazing, and we're all going to be fine. Wait a second. Doesn't the U.S. have some weird thing that they do with job numbers? Oh, yeah, that's right. They don't include real job numbers. They, after a certain amount of time of someone without a job looking for a job, they just factor them into the labor force participation rate and make the unemployment rate look a lot better than it is. So there's that. But anyway, this is a problem that's going to perpetuate as long as people believe in that system and act dependent and subservient to that system and lay back and go, the government and central banks will help me from this. It's a communist system, guys. A communist system because it's run through fractional reserve lending at the banks, and the banks are enforcing usury on individuals by a social contract that doesn't exist, hand in hand with the government. It's literally out of the planks of communism, complete centralization, control, the collective greater good of the greater number, legal tender laws. But Trump wants new banking regulations to stop these other things, these competitive currencies. He cannot stop it. No government can stop it. China wasn't able to stop it. They said, we're going to ban crypto. And guess what? More people bought crypto. And regardless of what you think about crypto, it doesn't matter how you preserve your wealth. Gold, silver, it doesn't matter. There's many different ways. There's more solutions than there are problems. But the fact of the matter is, this is happening, and it's fraudulent, and it's coercive, and it hurts the impoverished most. And regardless of tax cuts with inflation and the printing and all this debt, people end up worse off anyway. So it's like a cancer. You cut 95% off, and you end up with 5% left. And it grows. It always grows. It always will grow. So individuals have to look towards helping themselves and being independent, free, and responsible. It comes down to you as free individuals to protect your wealth, understand money so you can control your money, because if you control your money, well, you control yourself. If others control your money due to your inability to understand money, to understand value, which is completely subjective based on two people making transactions, not governments that decide things for you. If you don't control your money, someone else controls your money, and that person that controls, or those people that control your money, control you. What are you going to do about that? It's about you and your family and your future and your wealth and your ability to sustain yourself and be comfortable. It's your livelihood. It's one of the most important things to understand. That's why they make it seem boring. It's not boring, and it's actually pretty simple. It's just made to sound crazy. All these economic terms. It's just confusing. Debt and derivatives and, deficit, spending, budgets, this and that, and surplus and, debt ceiling. All these people, just their heads explode. They're like, what's going on? I don't understand. Bond markets, treasury yield, inversion, all that kind of stuff. It's really not that difficult. Just don't allow the government to have a monopoly on force over you or anyone else. Don't allow the banks to own you, essentially, which they're going to try and do with a centrally planned cashless society pushed through the government, sesame credit, all that kind of stuff. What you need to do is own your own money, compete currencies, diversify, find the truth, and be the change, as we always say here at WHAM. Be the change you wish to see for your family, for the sake of your family. If you don't care about yourself, think about them. So anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us today. There's so much in the news. There's so much more to go into, but we can only go into so much in one day. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WHAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we're so heavily demonetized and censored and shadow banned. It's getting really bad, folks. If everyone just gave $1 single a month to, say, Patreon or our Subscribestar, where we do subscriber-only content, we could really get out of this rut that we are currently in as YouTube tries to stifle independent media and prop up the mainstream media. This is really important. This is one of the most important times in independent media history for us to say it's now or never. Let's keep moving forward and let's be that change that we wish to see in the world. Of course, there's also our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And of course, we got events coming up. So make sure to check us out at anarchovegas.com. Anarchovegas.com. Use promo code WAM, that's WHAM, for a 10% discount on your tickets. It's on July 19th, 20th, and 21st in, of course, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's anarchovegas.com. Make sure to check us out there and find us on websites like BitTube and Minds, and just try to support independent media, if not myself, any of the other big independent medias out there, to help us continuously bring our message to you free of charge so that we can really change the guard as we move forward into a dramatically polarized, crazy future. Let's try to make it as sustainable as possible. It comes down to you guys. You are the change you wish to see. You guys will help us get through these tough times. So anyway, check out all those links. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Bye.